Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on this virtual book launch. With the pandemic, we find creative ways of doing things. And one of the ways we've gone around organizing large gatherings is to have virtual events. So we have followed on with that, thinking out of the box, to organize book launches virtually as a way of engaging with our audiences, but also bringing our books to the audience in a different way virtually. My name is Lillian. I'm part of the Spears publishing team, and I'm honored that you have taken the time to join us this afternoon or evening, whatever the time is where you are. So thank you for being here. We're here to launch a wonderful book by Martin Jumbam. We're delighted that he chose our publishing outfit for his book. And we're happy that you're all able to join us today. So I'm going to introduce our publishing team to give some opening remarks, and then we'll carry on with the program. After that, we'll introduce the moderator and we'll carry on with the program. So over to Jude.
Thank you, Lillian. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all to our book launch, to Mr. Martin Jumbam's book launch. So it's been a pleasure working with Mr. Jumbam. We started this work sometime last year. I think it took us many months to go through. We are a very thorough publishing platform. We made sure we dotted the I's and cut the T's, and we are so pleased that we have this product finally. So for those who are new to Spears Publishing, we have been around for 7 years. This is our 7th year of operation. We focus on telling African stories. We pride ourselves as a platform for alternative voices. And just so you know, we focus on fiction, poetry, nonfiction, drama, and we have many fine titles which you can find on our website. We have a really fascinating lineup of program for you today. We look forward to an engaging virtual launch. We want to recognize some of our editorial members who are here with us. Gilbert will be moderating. We are so pleased to have him here. We just did his own book launch a couple of weeks ago. And for those of you who may not be familiar with what we do, we have a catalog, which we'll be sharing later on. So check out our books and support our authors, spread the good word, and enjoy the launch. Thanks.
Thank you, Jude. So Jude already mentioned Gilbert. I'm delighted to introduce and welcome Gilbert as the moderator of this launch. Gilbert is well known to many of you, but by way of introduction, I want to say that he is based out of Germany. He's a very well accomplished author and poet based out of the University of Bayreuth in Germany, author of Letter from America, Memoir of an Adopted Child, published by Spears, and also his latest publication is The Radio and Other Stories, also published by Spears. And he's written vastly on Cameroon literature and continuous research in that area. So thank you, Gilbert, for doing us the honor of being a moderator for this event.
Thank you very much, Lillian. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, everyone who has joined us for this wonderful book launch. Some few months ago, when Jude wrote me, it was late night, my time in Germany, and I had come back from the office very tired, battered, and I wanted just to go to bed. Then I received a WhatsApp message from Jude saying, Gilbert, do you know Martin Jumbam? I said, but of course, how can I not know Martin Jumbam? Because the name blogging to me is synonymous to Martin Jumbam, and then someone whom we are going to discover also later in this program. So Jude sent the manuscript to me and asked me to write an endorsement. And I thought I would just look at it. I mean, just with one eye open and one eye closed, because I was already about going to bed. And the following day I could really maybe read some few pages. And bear with me, when I started reading the text, it was a roller coaster. I sacrificed my sleep for that night, and I slept on the book. You won't imagine, just to wake up, just to be able to take my kids to school the following morning without having slept for a single minute, because I wanted to start and finish that same night. That tells you about the nature of the book. When you begin, you don't end until you reach the very last page. The language, the precision, what my mentor Prof. Teke would say, the exteriorized interiority of the protagonist held me spellbound. Thanks very much, Jude. Thanks very much, SPS Media. It's an honor for me to be moderating this session, for it's a book that I really would recommend to anyone who is a lover of literature, a lover of the right words in their rightful place. We're going to have a wonderful program today with very renowned and recognizable names joining us, of course, as reviewers, of course, for the musical interlude. It's going to be a very interesting program. We are going to have Q&A at the end, towards the end. We're also going to have a game for you to know the author and the book, and at the end of which you are going to win some awards. So get ready and sharpen your brains. It's going to be a wonderful ride for close to 2 hours. I'm going to introduce to you the person who has brought us here today. And as I said, I knew him long ago. As long as I could access the internet, I knew Martin Jumbam. But of course, this was an opportunity for me to get to know him much closer. And I want to share with you his life trajectory. Martin Jumbam, don't mistake him for his brother. He has written a piece on that. He's an accomplished author in his own right. Of course, like brother. That's how I describe the relationship between Martin and Kenjo. Yes, but today we are talking about Martin. Martin was born and bred in Kar, in the hilly Southland. He did part of his primary education in his village, Nkar, but later on went somewhere quite interesting for me. For his school, I didn't know that he schooled close to my own village. He schooled in Tabiken, in the village of Tabiken, for his primary school, and then later on moved to Binjo, Nkambe, in Bumlan. Of course, if you live in these places, you have no right, you have no choice but to become an author, because these are very inspiring places, Tabiken and Binjo, the best places in Bumlan for you to ever live in. And the geography, of the topography of these areas are very similar to that of Nkara, the home village of our author, for the luxuriant hills that surround them. And you would find also, some wonderful descriptions of the nature and the marvels of nature in these wonderful bits of memory. So, and then he later on went for his secondary education to the Federal Bilingual Grammar School in Manowo Bay in Victoria, today known as Limbe. And that school is quite peculiar because it was an experiment, by the late President Amadou Ahidjo, where it was a bilingual experiment, for, to really breed purely bilingual Cameroonians. And if you know the breadth of Martin's work, you know that he is not only bilingual, but multilingual, of course. So from an early age, young Anglophone and Francophone children were actually isolated from society, and they learned to live together, something which we are still at pains to learn, to do, because, the circumstances now really warrant that kind of education. And after his secondary education, he later on went to the university, to Kasbambili. Actually, he went to Kasbambili for his high school before moving to the Federal University of Yaoundé, now known as, which was now Yaoundé 1 and Yaoundé 2, but he studied bilingual letters, French and English. He is actually a pure precursor of my humble self, and there are so many similarities that are really marveling, to me. After his bilingual degree in so-called Guaykele, he moved to Spain, to the Universidad Complutense in Madrid. That is also where the protagonist of Bit of Memory happened to have studied. There are conflations, but don't confuse, of course, the author with the protagonist. Please don't fall into that fallacy. After Madrid, he did a maîtrise at La Sorbonne in Paris before heading to Georgetown, USA, for a diploma in translation and interpretation studies. That is what we mostly know him for, apart from his other, of course, the other caps that he wears. That was followed by a master's degree in comparative literature, again, my precursor, at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. He then worked, after his master's in Canada, he worked for over 20 years for an American oil company based in Douala in Cameroon, before accepting Cardinal Tomé's invitation to run the Catholic media house, commonly known as, by its French acronym, MACACOS, Maison Catholique de la Communication Sociale. And after 4 years, he went into his private business as translator, interpreter, English, and then, of course, as an English teacher, English language teacher, and a freelance journalist. We know, he has written quite a number of pieces for various newspapers and magazines in and out of Cameroon. Writing is something which he is quite fun. He has developed that talent over the years, beginning from secondary school, where he was in the editorial board of the school magazine. And then he has published, of course, as I earlier said, a number of pieces in the Cameroonian press and beyond. And he is an author of a book published by Langa Press back in 2016, titled My Conversion Journey with Christian Cardinal Tomé. And of course, for your information, he also wrote the foreword to the latest publication by the Venerable Cardinal. Bit of memory, and this is something that is quite interesting, because when I read that text, I was like, why didn't he, why is it coming up now? Why did he allow it, for over these years? So for your information, Bit of Memory was written quite, decades ago in the 80s. And then he allowed it, fallow in his drawer, and recently, so those are some of the very few merits of COVID-19 that people had to even revisit some of those manuscripts. And that's what he did when he was with his son in San Jose in California. To kill boredom and maintain his sanity, he began resuscitating some of the files in his laptop, and he fell on that one and decided to polish it and send it to Spears Media, and the rest is history. And when you send something to Space Media, they don't just publish it. And that's one of the most enjoyable aspects of Space Media, that they really work with you to give your manuscript, it deserves, integrity. So just to say, so he really worked with Space Media, and now we have this wonderful product in front of us, which I would really, really confidently recommend to anyone, not only from Cameroon. It's a wonderful piece. It's a great contribution to post-colonial studies. Most often we know, of course, of narratives from African students who have studied in England, in France, to a lesser extent Germany, but we've hardly heard or read about these narratives from the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, for example. So this is a wonderful piece, and I would really recommend it to anyone, who is a lover of literature, to have it by his or her bedside. Okay, so next on program would be the official book launch. Of course, we have our books ready. So I hand it over to you, Jude, for the official book launch of this, wonderful piece that we have in our hands. I hope we have our copies there. Mine is.
Yes. So this is the symbolic moment. This is the real moment. If you have a copy of the book, this is when we want you to hold your book. Turn on your camera, please. Turn on your camera. For those of you who do not have, don't hesitate. Just go to Spears Books and order a copy promptly. But this is the moment of truth. Where the author knows who the loyal people are.
Exactly.
All right. So please hold the copy of your book, and we're going to invite someone to capture the screen. All right, we can see so many of you with your book. So please hold this book up proudly. First, we will congratulate the author, Mr. Martin Jumbam, and then we officially declare this book launched. Hooray, you can now cheer.
Great.
Over to you, Gilbert.
Okay, thank you very much, Jude. The moment of truth is over. Of course, we know that there are people who also got their electronic copies, through Kindle, so we can forgive those ones. Okay, we are going to pass over to the next, to the very first reading from this wonderful text, and that would be done for us by the author's own daughter, Simolen Jumbam. I hope she's with us. Simolen, if you are there, then you have the floor. I hope I got the pronunciation right, Simolen. I know it's always when sort of person pronounces it correctly.
You have it right.
Okay.
Well, you got it right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Can you unmute yourself?
Simolen.
Yeah, I see her phone is on mute.
Well, she's here with me, so she will take my seat because
Okay.
trying to unmute her computer is not working well. There she is.
Where am I? Oh, hi, everyone.
Hi.
Sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties there. I was trying to unmute and get my video going, but that didn't work. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see everyone and to meet everyone. So I'm going to read from the very last chapter of the book, titled Home Sweet Home. So that chapter actually captivated me a lot when I wrote a little review for that chapter. The wording, the imagery of that really captured me, because home has a lot of meaning, and especially over the years being abroad and going back home, and then in the field that I work with, I find the title home can be very ambivalent sometimes, depending on who is the subject of who is talking about that topic. So I will read this chapter now and just invite everyone to just get that imagery, especially, I guess, most of us were from Cameroon. So that imagery, when you're coming home from the airport or from the vantage point of an aerial view. So I just invite you as I start reading this chapter. Okay, that's chapter 12, by the way. Home Sweet Home. There, far below, are the beautiful meandering waters of River Uri. Huge trees with majestic trunks stretched out their gigantic arms to the winds. They stand They
Simple,
stand on both sides of the line like sentinels, protecting the eternal flow of its waters to the sea. Their big leaves, stalked onto strong branches, are dancing leisurely in the wind. The wind caresses and tickles them, and occasionally one, unable to stand the incessant fondling of the wind, snaps off its stalk, crash landing onto others that had taken the same ecstatic leap hours, days, or even months before. From above, the tropical forest looks like one huge green carpet unrolled over the land. It has a soft-looking texture to it. Down there, I see the gaping mouth of the Vuri opening out onto the flat sheet of the glittering sea waters. That is the Atlantic Ocean. Before that flat sheet of water brought the Portuguese to my country way back in history, the mighty Vuri was already easing the burden of its long journey into it. Long after the departure, it still takes its rest there. Those Portuguese adventurers had screamed on seeing shrimps abound in the Vuri, cameros, cameros, that is Njanga, Njanga, and later decided that would be my country's name. They paid no attention to the throbbing heart of the land or my people. They looted the land and went off with some of its sons and daughters into bondage. The land lay bleeding while its rivers coiled and recoiled, splashing their foamy fury into the sea. Then came the Germans with their guns. They confirmed that my country should still bear the name which the Portuguese had given it. They carried the land's rape further into the interior until the French and the British threw them out to make mankind free from German oppression. In turn, they did worse things by arbitrarily dividing up my land into two sections to ward off German menace to democracy. But one day, some sons and daughters of this land rose up, washed their fear down the mighty rivers of the land and said, "No, we've had enough. Our people can take it no more. We shall not let our people crack under this burden." It was then that the guns spoke in this land of our forefathers. The language of guns is the only language of the oppressed which the oppressor understands. For years, sons and daughters of my people stitched the torn land with a thread of bullets. Many fell, as evidenced by the numerous breathless graves that starred the land. But needless to say that a people's will is always victorious. All the great rivers of this land can bear witness to the courage of the fallen of yesterday. Unsung heroes fallen in battle, a finger on the trigger of the rifle. All the great rivers of this land are eternal. The Vuri, the Mongo, the Benue, the Sanaga, the Mbam, Bui in my hometown, and oh, a lot more were there before man. They will continue their uninterrupted flow to the sea long after man no longer is, if and when man ever ceases to be. I see over there a monstrous mound of earth towering above the land like a pimple on a polished cheek. That is the range of earth known to the world as the Cameroon Mountain, but which our people call Fako. From the air, I see the immovable Fako leaning this way, then that way. Rolling away into the distance as far as the eye can see are the undulating sawtooth hills, which further inland become known as the Adamawa Highlands. Hills of unsurpassed beauty, especially in the morning, just before sunrise, when the rains have purged the air of dust. Way up the mighty Fako, but swathed now as almost always in fog, is Buea. It had been the capital city of the state of West Cameroon some years ago. In those days, I knew two Bueas. Buea of civil servants with its numerous private clubs, exclusive tennis courts, and bars where lipsticked High-class women ate the wives of their former colonial masters with hilarious effect. That was Boya of the haves, the envy of the have-nots. Then the other Boya, more commonly referred to as Boya Town, swaying plank houses, tiny, rocky, garbage-infested streets, slime-covered pigs digging deep into stagnant, rotting rubbish by the roadside, a unison chorus from fat flies, green in their healthiness, protesting as passers-by happen to intrude on their feast on the omnipresent rotting garbage. Boya of well-fed mosquitoes, Boya of inflated-bellied children, Boya of drunks and whores, Boya on the fringes of the widely celebrated prosperity of the nation. Then, there below Boya, where the capricious waves either gently hug or furiously assault the huge foot of the mountain, is the town of Victoria, named in honor of Queen Victoria of the Great British Empire in the days when Britannia still ruled the waves. The empire over which we were taught to sing, "The sun will never set." There by the shore still stands a monument to Alfred Seker, one of the first Baptist missionaries to my country. When the tides are low, the waves kiss the embankment at the foot of the monument with a weak groan. But when the tides are high, the fury of the waves is tremendous. The waves strike the embankment, arch back for more strength, and charge again, rushing towards the monument with renewed fury. A friend had said of the charging waves, the implacable rage of the land against the colonial and religious rape of which this monument is a symbol. Heat, I embrace you, the heat of my land, the warmth of my land, warmth in the embrace of my people. I open up my arms to the heat of my country, to the warm welcome from my people. What can be more refreshing than the warmth of your land and the embrace from your people? Homecoming is worth it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simolin, for that very articulate reading. And we can see for ourselves, I mean, the very dexterous mixture of, of imagery, of space and historicity, narratives of diaspora, actually narratives of home. And I like the way he really intermeshes, I mean, these two dimensions in the text. Okay, we're going to move now to the very first review of the book. And that is going to be done by none other than another famous blogger. As I said, blogging to me is synonymous to Martin Jumbam and Dibussi Tande, who is a political scientist and a writer and a poet living currently in Chicago, USA. He has published articles, some of which have appeared, in very international magazines, and amongst them, Focus on Africa. And anybody who knows what Focus on Africa magazine was knows what it took for someone to publish there. Dibussi holds a master's degree in political sciences from Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago. And he is the author of No Turning Back, Poems of Freedom, 1990 to 1993. Some few days ago, some poems, one poem from this collection was circulated, and you can see the prophetic tone in his poetry, of course. And he's the co-editor of a recently published collection of poems titled Bearing Witness, Poems from a Land in Turmoil, published, of course, by Spears Media, which is a poetic response to the current war going on in Cameroon. Dibussi is also the author of Scribbles from the Den, Essays on Politics and Collective Memory in Cameroon, published in 2009. And he produces he's also, the pen or the keyboard behind the award-winning blog, which carries the title of his book, of course, Scribbles from the Den. Anyone who has not read from this blog hasn't read anything yet. So please, Dibussi, you are highly welcome. Jude asked me if I know you. I said, yes, I know you. I know you are.
Gilbert, thanks for that very detailed and flattering presentation. I'm just me trying to do the little I can to contribute to adding to the knowledge about Cameroon and its problems and its hopes and aspirations. I'm very happy to be here to take part in this book launch. In fact, I've come, before this book was published, I've come twice in contact with it, in one form or the other. Interestingly, in the 1990s when we had Cameroon Live, that chapter that was just read by Simolen was published in Cameroon Live. And it inspired me so much that I wrote a long poem about similar, with the same theme, but different. I think I would have brought that poem around. And I've known Martin since the 1990s from our Cameroon Live days when we used to look up to them and they used to be our guides in Cameroon Live, helping us find our feet in writing. Back then we were still in the University of Yaoundé. And when I came to the States and blogging started, and we wanted to start a blog, one of the first names that came to mind was Martin. And I said, I'm gonna track down Martin and I'm gonna get him to start a blog. Initially he was hesitant, well, he doesn't know, he's not comfortable with the technology and everything. And I said, don't worry, I'm here, we're gonna get this going and the rest is history. And we're here today. I also had the privilege of taking a snapshot, a peek at the manuscript before it was published. And just like you, Gilbert, as soon as I read it, I was instantly struck by the story. When I started it off, I thought, well, this is just another story from the diaspora, but it was totally different. And even before the book was published, I wrote a review. So that shows you how much this book, I thought this book was worth it. And so the review I'm going to do today is an excerpt from that lengthier review which I did of the book. So, Beads of Memory is a story of Leinteng Basha, a Cameroonian studying in Madrid in the 1970s. The story starts off like any other about African students in a strange European country, looking in from outside and trying to adapt to their new environment, which is sometimes hostile. Leinteng's story, however, goes beyond the usual complaints of African students abroad, loneliness, homesickness, racism, and it offers a humorless but laser-focused analysis of society at large. In Beads of Memory, Martin Jumbam presents us with an array of colorful characters. For example, Donna Maria, the garrulous landlady, whose aging eyes exude a childlike enthusiasm, and who is fascinated by this boy from Africa who writes love letters on torn packets of cigarettes. The jovial and modest Bassi from Nigeria, who becomes fluent and eloquent only after a few glasses of beer. And then of course, there's the Marxist, Jesus Ndongo from Equatorial Guinea, a young man whose hopes for a better tomorrow had been crushed and buried years ago in his homeland, and who has now become a drifter in Europe. There's also Jean-Marie Mobutu, the revisionist sellout from Zaire, whose name opened him to ridicule and sometimes outright verbal and even physical attacks from his fellow countrymen who thought he was a relative of the Zairean president. During moments of solitude and despair in Madrid, Leinteng nostalgically wades down memory lane and thinks about his family back in Cameroon and about his childhood in his native car, a simple but happy life filled with love and tenderness. Most notable in his ruminations is the towering presence of his mother, who manages to hold the family together when the husband falls ill. That section that deals with the mother is really a tribute to all mothers around the world, especially African mothers who stand by their sons and their children against all odds. Beads of Memory is littered with lyrical passages that fire up our imagination and transport us to distant land, such as Nkar, which the author describes as sawtooth with its sawtooth hills that twist and turn and rise and fall in huge reels that look like endless waves winding away further than the eye can see. You can imagine that in your eyes, in your mind's eye. Or Madrid, with its snow-capped and undulating Sierra Mountains that ring the city like a noose around a condemned prisoner's neck. Beads of Memory may be from an age long gone, before the internet, before social media, before the smartphone, but the issues that it tackles still resonate today. Many Africans are still in exile because their political activism has made them persona non grata in their home countries. Many African students abroad are still doing the best to curry favor from their repressive home governments in hopes of landing a cushy job when and if they return home. And the heated discussions about political strife back in the home country abound. Thus, when Jesus Ndongo argues that, and I quote, "A revolution oiled by the blood of the young is bound to be a revolution, frightening in its potency," one cannot help but think back about the ongoing conflict in Leinteng's homeland, Cameroon. While Beads of Memory tells the story of African students abroad, a story that is familiar across the decades and across generations, it's also a critique of Western society and politics in post-independent Africa. It is also a celebration of family, friendship, and tradition. That Martin Jumbam has successfully pulled this off in just 83 pages is a literary tour de force that must be commended. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much, Dibussi, for that very eloquent review. Of course, nobody expects anything less from Dibussi Tande. So, yes, Richard has a small hitch, so he'll be joining us later on. I mean, but he's with us. I mean, he's going to be joining us in some few minutes' time. So that means we might go to the book giveaway announcement by Lillian before we get the musical interlude by the one and only Richard Kings. Yes, Lillian, if you are ready, then yeah.
Sure. So if you've attended any of our book launches, you know we do this where we give away a book or two or three from our publishing company. And later during this launch, we're going to have a fun quiz. We're going to give 2 books to the first 2 winners. So stay tuned and participate in this fun quiz and for a chance to win a free book from Spears Books.
Okay, thanks very much. I remember the battle was very was a close one in my own book launch. So I hope we are even going to have a kind of Real Madrid Barcelona game today, and yeah, very committed participants. Okay, in that case, we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a second reading, a short reading by Simolen again. Simolen, you have the floor once more.
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
not Simolen this time.
Okay, you will do it. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me get to my chapter.
Okay.
All right. This one is from my family. That is Leinteng's family, of course. It says, "Come with me to meet my family. Greet my father, greet my mother, my 2 brothers, Litala and Basha, and my sister, Yefon, and her husband, Banka. I just received a letter from my sister, Yefon. Everyone at home is well," my sister says in her letter. "Since you have decided never to write us, we can only assume that you are well." I knew that was coming. Whenever I pick up an envelope with my sister's writing on it, I can tell without opening it what its contents are. My silence is always viewed as a sign of gradual detachment from the family. I try to make them understand that letter writing has always been a difficult task for me. They do not understand, and I do not blame them at all. I do not understand why I'm so lazy these days myself. When I was a student in Paris and Marseille some years ago, I wrote home fairly often, especially to Banka, my sister's husband, whom I encouraged to write the General Certificate of Education A-level, which he did with brilliant results. My sister had deeply appreciated my concern for the welfare of our family. However, these days, whenever I pick up a pen and paper to write them a letter, Laziness starts to crawl irresistibly over my determination. And before long, it is triumphantly planting a flag of victory in the ridges of my mind. In such cases, I end up lighting a cigarette. My sister's letter has left the shores of my mind awash with the waves of childhood memory, layers of memory neatly stacked away in the vaults of my mind, which I occasionally revisit to relieve past victories and failures from which I draw sustenance to battle present perplexities in hope of steeling myself against the tomorrow's uncertainties, a tomorrow that will hopefully be better than yesterday and today. You may want to know something about my family. Well, I come from a relatively small family. I'm talking about my immediate family, my mother, my father, my brothers, and my sister. It is hard to think of one's family as being small, which includes such near and far relatives as uncles, aunts, and cousins. I feel like talking only about my immediate family. Litila is the eldest of us all. He is 27 years old. I am the second and I'm 25 years old. Yefon, our only sister, is 23. She's now she's now a mother of 2 sons. Her husband, Banka, is now a very close family relative, and I cannot think of our family without him. It is as if he has always been with us. He is a primary school teacher in Karawa village, and he is 27 years old. Then there is Basha, the youngest of us all. He's named after our father. He's 27 years old. He's 20 years old, rather, and he is in the Cameroon College of Art, Science, and Technology in Bambili, some 8 miles or so from Bamenda. He's preparing to write the General Certificate of Education, GCE Advanced Level, next June. He is in the science section. In my days in the same school 6 years ago, I studied history, French, and literature. And numbers have always scared the hell out of me. So I remember how Basha, who adores figures, has always had an eye for computer sciences. Litila, my elder brother, is quite different from Basha. While Basha is aggressive, loud-mouthed, never backing out of any fight, always being the first to start one, Litila is the calm and very easygoing type. In fact, so slow that when he is around, you have to slow down your rhythm of activity to suit his. Do not waste your time urging him on to act quickly. He will walk about the house unconcerned, whistling to himself as if you were not even there. That drives me always crazy. Okay, I'll talk about our father now. Papa died about 12 years ago. I had just turned 13 and was preparing to go to secondary school. He had been bedridden for about 7 years before he died. The only picture of him that looms clear in my mind is one of an emaciated man in bed with blankets covering his body up to his chest, with a forlorn look on his face and a sad smile whenever you sat by his bed and took his bony hands in yours. Another picture is of him lying on the bed in front of our house, a fly whisk in his hand, watching as we ran noisily from one corner of our compound to another. He would call out to warn us against running too fast or ask us to move a big log out of the way so as not to trip on it. At the foggy corner of my mind, I can still see a fading picture of Papa when he was still well and strong. I see him, a tall man, not too fat and not too lean, coming back home in the evening, a load of firewood on his head. He was an excellent trapper. I remember him bringing home each morning, as we were waking up, his catch of squirrels, porcupines, and rodents. I recall that Litila and I would always argue whether Papa ever slept at all. He would send us, my brother and us, to bed, then stay up talking with Mama. And when we woke up in the morning, there he was coming home, feet wet with dew, his usual catch wrapped in banana or cocoyam leaves. He would often call Litila or me to go to a neighbor's house with some of the catch, and the happy neighbor would praise the generosity of the man that everyone acknowledged had been endowed with nature, with unparalleled skills as a trapper. I do not recall how it happened exactly, but I remember hearing Papa complaining of pain in his knee joints He started to find difficulty walking. And when he gave up what was almost second nature to him, that is strapping, we then knew that things were not good. With each passing day, the pains in Papa's knees intensified. For the next 7 years, he was to remain in bed, an invalid, a strong and active man who had suddenly become reduced to a state of a vegetable. A loving and loved father from whose eyes the light of life was gradually fading out. Traditional doctors came and went, some just mere quacks, charging a high fee and then running away as soon as you turn your back to them. Others, sincere and devoted men who charged little or nothing at all and who did not hide their concern and even frustration in the face of such a mysterious illness, which could so easily incapacitate an active and respected son of the people. Then came the turn of Western medicine, and the result was not any better. I still have in my mind's eye the picture of Mama during these 7 years. She would rise up early in the morning, take our father, her husband, to the bathroom, wash him and sit him down by the fireside. Then she would wake us, wash us and prepare us for school. Then she would go about her chores, whistling and singing, as if the work she was called upon to do was the lightest any woman could have had the luck to do. She would interrupt her singing just to talk to Papa or to greet a neighbor bringing us food. We knew, of course, that Mama would give you a spanking on your behind if you did something really stupid, and Papa would call out from his bed, "Lair, that's not the way to beat a child. What if you sprain his back?" Mama would answer back impatiently while still going about her chores. "He can only be your child. You talk of a man who has spoiled his children with overindulgence." For 7 years, Mama was a mother and a father to us, his children, and also a father even to her own husband. I can hardly think of anyone in the village who did not speak of Mama in anything more than glorious terms. Who is the girl of today who would agree to sit by the bedridden side of her husband for 7 years? The elders always wondered. The day Papa passed away, Mama revealed another side to her personality, which we had not been aware of then. To our greatest surprise, she extemporized a heart-stirring eulogy to our father, quoted in the poetry of unblemished love. That scene is still among the noblest images of that day that still occasionally visits the shores of my mind, especially when I let the arms of solitude in these alien lands encircle me in their desperate embrace. I remember that our house was packed full as our relatives and neighbors came and went. Mama stood over the shrouded body of our father and addressed him in words majestic by their simplicity and which have marked me for life. "Basha," she began in a slow and emotion-drenched voice, "your children and I are here beside your bed." Excuse me. "We have been beside your bed for the past 7 years. However, today is the last day we stand here before you, for you are no longer with us. Basha, you are the tree in whose shadow I walked with your children until one day, and for no known reason, its leaves withered away. Basha, you were the strong arm your children and I had clung to in times of trials. But then one day, we still don't understand why, it shriveled away. Basha, as you go, know that your children and I feel like chicks without their mother. The powerful wind has blown away the umbrella under which, excuse me, under which my children and I have been sheltering from the wind." But he continued, still slowly, turning away from the bed to face the assembly. "The women of the land, all these women here assembled with us, united with us in grief, are the mothers of these children as well. The elders of the land here assembled will take care of us, these men with white hair on their head and chin. These men who hours after they have walked past by, the odor of their presence still lingers behind them. Yes, these men take these children as theirs. Well, they are no longer mine alone." Excuse me. "These children," she said, pointing to us, as if introducing to us whoever did not know us, "are the children of the people, the children we have given to our people, that they may grow up strong and walk along the path you had traced for them, the path of upright deeds, the path of rectitude, the path of truth." On and on went my mother, lifting up layers of emotion-fraught images to describe the times she had spent with my father as a wife and as a mother of his children. What a great man my father had been, a man poor in material wealth, but how very rich in the warmth of human kindness, how he had cared for her and her children, and how she in turn had been happy to take care of him. It was then that I saw many an elder of the land furtively wipe away a tear, and men who called themselves men turned their faces to the wall because they did not want us, their children, not to mention their wives present, to see the tears glistening in their eyes. Where has he ever been heard in Trot land that a man who has ever called himself a man has ever let a woman see a tear glistening in his eyes? That is an abomination of all abominations. Okay, I want to end there. We can go on, but that is all I can say for that portion of this book. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Martin. It was one of the most enticing for me. That was a wonderful tribute to not only to the mother of Basha, but also to all mothers. Neka, a woman is great, and I really enjoyed that part. Above all, we're now going to move to the next item on the agenda, which will be the review time. Of course, Jude will take charge of that, and I really plead with everyone present to give this book a boost, by committedly, logging on to the various websites, Amazon and Goodreads and all. I mean, in order to really give the book a good reviews, so that at least it should reach a wider readership. Jude will take charge of that part of the program, and then I'll come later on, of course. Richard Kings is getting ready. We know how artists are. He's in the dressing room and, preparing the best for the audience. He'll be with us very soon. Jude, you can take over the microphone for now, and then we'll proceed with the reviews.
Thank you, Gilbert. I hope everyone is having a good time. Please use the chat to share your thoughts about the book, to post your questions, share comments with other readers. If you look at the chat, you would see a long list of stuff I just shared with everyone. The first one is a special discount code. Please take a look at the chat. The code is BEATS 2021. So you can use that code to purchase any book on our website, and you would enjoy a 25% discount. So that's the first revelation. Alternatively, you can click on that link, and it will take you straight to our website, and the code will be entered already automatically, and whatever book you add to your cart will be discounted by 25%. So that's cool. All right, the next item would be a rating of the book. So we started this with Gilbert's book. It's a new, innovative idea that we are trying to get our readers acquainted with. When you read a good book, of course, you want to rate it, you want to review the book. So we have different platforms for Beats of Memory. As you know, it's on many, many different Amazons. There is, of course, the US, UK, Germany, Canada. So depending on where you are, I know people are joining us from different parts of the world. Please click on the appropriate Amazon. Go give that book the maximum number of amount of rating you can afford. I believe it's a 5-star on Amazon. So please give it, and when you have done that, please indicate with a raised hand so we can know you have done that part. There is also a link for the book on the Spears website. So please go on that page, give the book a 5-star rating. And if you have a short review or something that you wrote before and you pasted it somewhere on Facebook or it was somewhere else, maybe Instagram, please copy it and paste it on these different platforms, just so the book has more visibility. So please, I hope you're not just listening to me and you're actually doing this. Go on the website and please give Martin's book a boost. So over to you, Gilbert. I don't know if we have someone to perform.
Yes,
You
yes,
ready now?
you're on board. Okay, thanks so much, Jude. And permit me make one comment, even as we move to the next item on the agenda. That what the nature of this book is in such a way that it really is readable for the wider public, which means it's a relatively easy read, but also a very intellectually engaging text. So, which means he has accomplished something which I think Chinua Achebe does so masterfully, and which Garcia Marquez does, to write a book that is accessible, but also at the same time you can engage with it at a very intellectual level. That's why I say it's a very invaluable contribution to post-colonial studies, especially with regards to the Iberian Peninsula and the colonial realities of Spain and Portugal. So I think it will really be a wonderful read for anyone of any intellectual level. So we're going to move now to Richard Kings is ready, and he's with us here. Richard, okay. Let me say some few words about Richard. Richard Kings is a household name, actually. And he plays music not just for dancing, but it's music for the soul. And Richard Kings is somebody who started, singing about. He was an ambassador for culture and for peace even before we became desperate, for peace at this juncture in our history. And Kings is a man of the people. He is someone who has performed, in many many international fora. He's performed, twice at the UN General Assembly in New York. He's toured the world. He's been everywhere in Algeria, in China, Japan, Tokyo, USA, Canada, and has received, so many awards. Two of which are the best contemporary music performer for 2014 in Seattle, USA, and then the best folk song singer in Holland. Kings has produced a number of albums, which include Shine the Light, Melody, Agora, Triple Heritage, and of course, a string of singles, epoch-making singles. And I would say I have been on stage with Kings. Of course, it was a post stage performance, but we are going to work on that album. Thanks so much, Kings. Thanks for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope the audio is everything okay?
I hear you. I mean, is it the same with Jude and others? I hear you, maybe not very perfectly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Okay.
fine.
Perfect. Okay. So how can I tell the world when I'm supposed to tell the world when they ask me what did I do? How am I supposed to let the world know that I've been here before? Oh, why is it so hard to sing again today? Why is it so hard to play again these days? So I find the beats of my memory. I find the beats of my memories and my history. I know when I look around, I see the light that shines from the culture. What am I supposed to tell my children? How did we get here? What do we do wrong? How did we go this far from the center that used to hold? None of the structure is so fragile because I'm home anymore. What do we become? Oh, what do we become? So I find inspiration in the beats of my memories. I need to run to find a reason to inspire my children. And I will tell them the way that they should lose faith, that they should lose faith like I would dream of you. You are to my love, even though I say you are. find new legs to walk with. So we will keep going, new lives of faith, new hearts to love with. We'll keep going, new hearts to embrace with. I find them in the beats of my memory. Find them in the love I showed to my grandma. Just another that made us free. In the wall, see the end through the eyes of faith. See the end through the eyes of faith. See the end through the eyes of love. And now we both should be education. See the children running around in the rain, in the sun, and better tomorrow. So I find me with the beats of my memory. I find love in the beats of my memory. I'll search, I'll guide, reach the land. I'll do what to do my story. I'll speak out and sing out the melody of inside. Hey, Ubuntu, Ubuntu, God bless you. Ubuntu, 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 God bless you. Hey, oh, we do it, we do. We do it, we do. We do it, Hey, Jumbam, see the earth through the eyes of love. See the world through the eyes of faith. See the world through the eyes of love. Let's plant the seeds of love every day. So I found them in the peace of our memories. I found one in the peace of our memories. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Richard Kings. Your inimitable voice hasn't lost its luster. So wonderful, always wonderful listening to you. There was an issue with the sound of the guitar, but I'm sure we'll fix that, before your next intervention. Yes.
All right.
But thanks so much for your wonderful voice. It's always a pleasure to listen to you again, even though now on the virtual platform. Thanks a lot. Jude will take over and follow up on the reviews for a while. Then Joe Banafti should be getting ready for the reading before we listen to Richard Kings again and Jean-Claude. Yeah, Jude, you have.
Thank you, Gilbert. You're doing such an awesome job. Thank you, Richard Kings. It's a pleasure to listen to you. I'm a big fan of yours. Let's see. So thank you, Divine. Divine has left a review on the Spears website. Who else? Who is next? So far, it's just Divine. And the Spears site can also tell if you're a verified buyer of that book, if indeed you bought the book from Spears, so we can tell. So please go there. If you loved Mr. Jumbam's book, go on the Spears website and give it a 5-star rating. And don't keep it to yourself. As they say, good word doesn't need to be put under the bed. You don't light a lamp and put it under the bed. Share it. Put it on top of the hill so everyone can see it. So share this information. Share it with your friends. If you're finished reading a copy of this book and you want to pass it on, that's fine. If you want to buy a copy for a friend of yours or a family member, you can also do that. You'll be supporting independent publishing, supporting the author, and most importantly, supporting and celebrating African storytelling. So please go on that platform and put in your review. If you've already done this before, on a different platform, say on Facebook, you can copy it from there and paste it on the Spears website. You can also do so on Amazon and invite your friends as well to rate the book on Amazon. All right, and if you have any difficulties or questions related to that, please just put it in the chat. We'll be more than happy to clarify. Don't also forget the 25% discount code. This applies not just to Beats of Memory, it applies to every title available on our platform. Beats of Memory is also on sale. It's going today for $13 only. It's regularly $15. So it's a promotional sale to celebrate this very important day. So we want to thank you again for being here. We know you could have been elsewhere. We really appreciate you. So thanks. Over to you, Gilbert.
Thanks very much, Jude. That point cannot be overemphasized, and we know what reviews do to propel authors. So please do us that favor. And if you run into any difficulties, contact Spears Media. The communication department of Spears is wonderful. I mean, they respond, in a jiffy, and any difficulties that you might run into can be solved in the twinkle of an eye. So we are now going to move to another reading, the third reading. This would be done by Joe Banafti. Joe, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to usher in Martin Jumbam. He is an older brother that we all had been looking up to for a very long time, especially around the 1990s in Cameroon, the early 1990s, when we were all very convinced that Cameroon was going to change, and we actually did believe that that country was going to change. Things are the way they are now, and we know where we can place the fault. But Martin has not relented in his ability to pen down his memories and to pen down his experiences in writing for progeny. So I am very honored to be here to read from Beats of Memory. I will do a few paragraphs from chapter 2, Drowning Boredom in Poetry. Leighton has been trying to get into creative writing, trying to put his thoughts down, and musing between that and not doing anything, or just trying to overcome boredom and so on. So this particular experience, is very relevant to the experience that we all have, especially those who want to, to create a diary for themselves, living abroad and experiencing new climes. But essentially, I think that this is an experience that we all can relate to. So this morning, I again picked up my diary for a post-mortem examination of my defeat yesterday. The major reason was my impotence to deflower a virgin sheet of paper. My anger was certainly all the more intense as it had not occurred to me that a man armed with the determination and enthusiasm that were my weapons then could be so easily flawed by his attempts to give his eagerness verbal or written expression. Today, the second day of my writing career, is quite a different ball game altogether. I feel much more relaxed than I was yesterday. I have been able to look at yesterday's failure in a serene manner, with reason fondling and taming my ego. That may be the only way I am ever going to be a writer. No unnecessary outbursts of emotions, no time for anonymous enemies of smokers naively asking us to give up what is already second nature to many of us. Lonely crusaders against smoking who are probably former smokers themselves with lungs already riddled beyond repairs with cancer tumors. Who knows if they have not all died of cancer already? Today, Madrid is even colder, flogging the metallic ribs of this fog-invaded city is a lip-splitting wind that courses down from the snow-capped undulating Sierra, the mountains that ring the city like a noose around a condemned prisoner's neck. Those mountains belch columns of grumbling, furious, and voracious wind that licks every exposed part of your body. It seems to have a particular love for my fleshy lips, taking an obscene delight in digging deep crevices through the thick layer of Vaseline coating on them. Oh, how I hate jokes that make me smile or laugh out loud. The merciless wind seems to wait for just such a moment to plunge its razor-concealed tongue into the tiny cracks on my parched lips. When that happens, salty blood trickles down, hardening just as quickly, for the cold wind leaves nothing liquid on its path. I have a hobby which my friends do not understand. I like to watch the Sierra at the horizon because they remind me of the hills of my childhood years. Up in the grassland region of Cameroon, where I was born and bred, saw-toothed hills twist and turn and rise and fall in huge reels that look like endless waves winding away further than the eye can ever see. The hills of my land carry swift, flowing rivers like heavy loads on their shoulders and overturn them into deep, hollow valleys where they bash their heads in spectacular dives against jutting rocks. I have not seen the power of description come into one hand like this, and just the ability to be able to sculpt out elements of nature and put them in a picture that you can literally perceive in your mind's eyes. I think that Martin Jumbam is a great writer, and you can read the rest from here going forward, and it's just like Gilbert has said, it's just you cannot stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe Banafti. And yeah, we are going to then, since we have some difficulties with the sound from Richard King's end, so we are going to play one of his tubes, one of his clips, for the pleasure of our audience, so that they know who Richard King's is actually. Jude will play from his end before we move to the next item on the agenda. So Jude, I've just sent you the link on WhatsApp, and you can play for the.
Just give me a few seconds. I'm loading my WhatsApp.
Okay, fine.
Was it a specific one? If not, I can play another one.
Yes, one of my best. He gave me the pride of place I'm in to choose. So it's one of the benefits of being an MC. I just thought it. Okay, so far it's there too.
Wambo kin kwashu love, better to yin leombo, better to yin leo, better love you for leo, better love you for leo, one so loni wanga, wombo wira wunwani, wombo wira wunwani. Imo ye wira wunwano, wombo wira wunwani. Wira kituko kiyo, imo ye wira kituko kiye. Wira kituko kiyo, emo ye wira kituko kiyo. Pulasi lasi sayadi laye laye. She finds into the tangri oh, we sui very that you to me aja young ring one you we sui very. She fight tankum tani tangri oh, we sui very that you bet to go young ring one you we sui very. She fights in la tangri oh, we sui very that you bush you oh, ja young ring one you we sui very. She fight you ari tangri oh, we sui very that you laugh on oh, ja young ring one you we sui very. She fight wash you but we tangri oh, we sui very. Mama madu oh, ja young ring kurani oh, we sui very. Shufai woluni tangri oh, we sui very. That you fire ja young ring one you we sui very. Shufai zani tangri oh, we sui very. That the manu mangu oh, tari angwa shivi we sui very. Tadum lantumbo ja tari angwa shivi we sui very. Tadum sunjo aja tari anga sivi we sui vere. We're caught in Jamiru, we caught in Jamiru. Baby Saki, oh, we're a wungamo, we're a wungamo. Imo ye, we're a wungami. Wombo, we're a wungami. For me love by wo, imo ye, a gombi America, oh, Kinja Kigarwo, Kiwo to me, she's on me. Lamson told me, want me up on me, Joro, want me to Yasimo, oh, give and one so, Yoki Pum Lawo, want me, more humble, yeah. Tata manu manguja tari angwa shivi we sui vere. Tatum sunjo aja tari angwa shivi we sui vere. Oh, pastosa aja tari angwa shivi we sui vere. Tatum lantumbo ya tari angwa shivi we sui vere.
Wow. This is Richard King's. I call his music global so music. And if you think that his music is euphonious and lamso, then listen to Richard King's sing in Limbom. You would be amazed. You will be flabbergasted. Thanks so much, Richard, for that wonderful piece. And we are going to move to another item on the agenda, and that would be a review. Irenaeus, are you there? If you're there, indicate so that I... Are you there? Unmute and let me know. Irenaeus?
Jude should have his contribution, which is sent in earlier.
Okay, fine. So Jude, then we are going to do a backup video, right? Jude, then you can play it now. Super, cool.
I have known and worked with Mr. Martin Jumbam for over 15 years. During these years, we've had a cordial and professional working relationship. I have actually helped in proofreading the novel Bits of Memory. I don't know why Mr. Jumbam actually chose me as one of the proofreaders, but all I know is that it's been an edifying and humbling experience having proofread the book. I made some suggestions. Some were actually considered, others were not considered. But I actually got more from proofreading the book than I did put into it. When I read through Bits of Memory, I actually discovered that a creative writer has unlimited sources of inspiration. For Mr. Jumbam, his travel or study experiences, his family, and everyday experiences became what I call his muse. What we see every day as what we see as normal experience, as normal everyday experiences, Mr. Jumbam sees the same experiences through the eyes of a creative writer. Everyday themes like isolation and estrangement, love, family struggles and death, for example, are handled with dexterity, sincerity, and with such an in-depth that the reader easily relates to them. From the book, I see the author, Mr. Jumbam, as a child of two, or better still, multiple worlds, as he successfully blends the African, European, and American worldviews into one in the novel. The novel, or Bits of Memory, is therefore a sum total of Mr. Jumbam's life experiences. Bits of Memory is undoubtedly one of the most serious literary pieces in English in Cameroon at the moment. For this reason, I don't know if he's going to accept it, I have suggested to Mr. Jumbam that he should lobby to have it included in the literature program in our schools. In so doing, he will be perpetuating the legacy or the memory of his brother, of his elder brother, Mr. Kenjon Jumbam, whose book, The White Man of God, it was a pleasure for us to read in our days in secondary school. As the French say, there is no first without a second, excuse my translation. So I'm looking forward to reading other books from Mr. Jumbam. So congratulations on your book launch and welcome to Bits of Memory. Once again, congratulations, Mr. Jumbam.
Wonderful review by Irenaeus there. We didn't say any, I mean, we need to say some few words about him. Of course, we played a backup video. Irenaeus Chia is from Ginicom in Boyo Division, Northwest region of Cameroon. He attended St. Bates College, Ashing, Government High School, Kombo, before moving to Yaoundé. where he also studied in the Advanced School of Mass Communication. He is a well-read man, as you can, of course, testify from that video, and is very versed with the literary classics. He has done reviews for some of their, for some of the magazines and newspapers in Cameroon, and is also a very experienced hand when it comes to language and literature pedagogy. He currently works for the newspaper of the National Bishops' Conference, L'Effort Camerounais. He is also a part-time English language teacher and at the Douala American Language Center. Okay, we're going to move to another musical performance. This time it's a very wonderful genre. It's called the Ngiri, and it will be performed by Jean-Claude Kilo. Jean-Claude is from Sop, one of those villages, which as somebody from Mbomland, I don't know whether it's on Sop land or Mbomland, but it's somewhere around the border between the two. And Jean-Claude Kilo is someone who has been fascinated, by this genre, especially the way it is rendered in Sop culture, the Ngiri genre. Ngiri is one of the societies, cultural, some would say secret societies of, as far as I know, Sotland, but also of Mbomland, which is my own homeland. And so he wants to perform Ngiri. I wouldn't say song because Ngiri is not song, it's incantation. So we're going to listen to the incantations of Ngiri by Jean-Claude Kilo. Jean-Claude, you have the floor.
Hey, Mr. Shang and everybody present here, thanks a lot. I just wanted to say I am no artist. I'm not near an artist at all. But I got fascinated with the tonality and the way Ngiri is sung. And in 2008, Martin Jumbam actually heard me sing. And it meant something to him, to me. I was just doing the thing and picking pieces after bigger brothers like J.K. Banafti, who is from the Ngiri society like myself. Bajim sumnindo, bajim jainan sara, afan life na kufai bonchela, winze lang, shumeram gwangwa. GMO, eshu fai so bifon. GMO, ye fai shu sume saib. GM we sadim du shovela shu suma kun sayin jim. Tab Jumbam. Afan ngami mola boda buk merong wala. Wanto fan ngami mola boda buk ngiri venla. Famin with the vetata. One nanchem yipu. We when kwayen yulung we koyen bova to put and go sijin kaimi. Karo Lundo Bokambo, Abu Potisia Yendo, Sawile La Shala, Shirashikwa was at a fella you. Sijikolum, Bonkosim, our Jumayan side. Lavender you for Matom. Kenuka, Kayika Kentaye. Bear.
Thanks so much. Jingwayo, let me add that in Limbo, Mami, because it's the same culture and it's a wonderful rendition of the Ngiri there. Of course, I understand a bit of Lamso, but I heard Ngwasang, of course, when you talk about student experiences, be they in Europe or in Africa, Ngwasang must be there, maize. It could be in form of parched corn and granite. Yeah, so Ngwasang summarizes all, and Kibun and Kimbar. Thanks so much, Jean-Claude. It was wonderful.
I pray I don't get another request from Tam Jumbam. This was all for him.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And now we're going to move to the next item on our agenda. and that is the book giveaway quiz. Very interesting phase of any book launch, of course, organized by Spears Books. Lillian, I hand over the mic to you to coordinate that phase of our program.
Thank you very much. And Barry to Jean-Claude, that was really nice. Barry Womba. So our book giveaway, I shared a link earlier for those who want to participate in the quiz. Please go to that link and enter the code to participate. If you don't participate, you don't get a chance to win a book. So the only way to participate is to go on that link and enter the code. I see 2 people have joined. I'm going to share my screen so others can see the code and be able to join. Okay, so if you can see that the code is there and the link is there. Just wait for a few people to join and then we would proceed. We had 5 questions, but I made it 7 later. So if you've been paying attention, it helps. If you've read the book, it also helps. So go to www.menti.com and use the code that I entered on the chat. Okay, 1 more person joined. And for those who win, please send us your mailing address in the chat and we will have your book sent out to you. So www.menti.com, use the code 17257544, which is showing on the screen. Are there any more joining? I think we had like 30 people on the call, so give it a shot. Is there anybody having difficulties joining on that link? Okay, I'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll proceed with the 4 that are on. Okay, so let's carry on. Oh, 1 more. Okay, so we have 5 people who proceed. So remember with the quiz, it also helps if you are quick to respond. So that gives you more points, but also be accurate. So keep in mind speed and accuracy in your response. Okay. Somebody keeps entering and dropping. Okay, first question. Name the 3 main characters in the book. Three, two, one. Okay. The first was the right answer. Let's see who got it. And how quick were you? Okay, Simonan was fastest and is facing stiff competition from Dibussi. All right, next question. Remember, you have to be fast to score. It's the name of the favorite hangout of the characters. Five seconds left. All four got it right. That's a stiff competition right there. Well done. Let's see who was fastest. Simolen is still in the lead. Third question. What did the author study at the university? 5 seconds left. Okay, 3 people said bilingual studies, which is correct. 1 said law. Divine has redeemed himself. He's climbed up over Nick Jackson. Okay, next question. What high school did the author attend? Okay, all 5 responses are in. Let's see who got it fast and who got it right. I think that was quite a twist, huh? Okay, 3 people got it right, correspondingly. Okay, Simolen is still up. Tom got in the top 5. So if you've read the book, this one goes to the book. What do Yenteng and his friends do regularly? Smoking and drinking. 4 people got that right. Oh, sorry. Let me get the leaderboard. Okay, I see Divine is climbing up. Gonna be a stiff one to meet Dibussi and Simolen. Okay, 2 more questions. Last fight. What does the main character miss about his home? Everybody got that right. Misses his family. Okay. Let's see how that moves the table. How fast were you? Nice. Looks like that top is not changing. So 1 more try. Final question. Ah, everybody answered quick. Let's see if you got it right. All 5 got it correct. Okay, congratulations. Thank you all for participating. Let's see if that changes the top. Okay, bravo, Simolen is the winner of that quiz, and thank you for participating. And we'll move on to the next part of the program, which will be a Q&A, and over to you, Gilbert.
Thanks so much, Lillian, for that coordination. I mean, it was the way you guys do it at Space Media. This is one of my best, moments in every book launch. Thanks so much for this innovative, phase of the program. We are going to move over now to a very important phase also, the opportunity for you to interact with the author, ask your questions and get his feedback. Of course, you can also do comments without direct questions. So the floor is open now for questions and comments with regards bits of memory. We're going to be brief. We have just 20 minutes for that phase of the program. And I know almost everyone wants to say something. So it's good to speak and let's speak. So speak and give the floor to others. You have maximum 2 minutes to make your statement or to ask your question so that others can also have the time to contribute. So the floor is open for questions and our author is there to respond to them. We are also going to keep an eye on YouTube, where we are transmitting live, on Facebook. And so you have the floor now, please. We are looking at the chat. You can raise your hand, of course, by clicking on the icon on the I've changed the view of my Zoom so I can be able to have at least a view of almost everyone present. So you are welcome, please, to ask your questions. And I know many of you are itching to ask. Who will set the ball rolling? Okay, Mary, Fossey, you are there. You're on video, so you want to ask directly, right? Okay, you have the floor. You can unmute yourself and then proceed with your question.
Unmute.
Please unmute so that we can get you. Yes, yes, you are there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coordinator. I want to seize this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Jumbam, Dr. Jumbam, for a piece of work which I haven't read, but just the few chapters which were presented here on this book, this review were very interesting. So I want to congratulate him and join the other speaker before me to say that I think he should continue with his endeavors, should not, and he should really continue to produce more creative work for our country and the rest of the world. I just want to ask a simple question about the choice of his the choice of the topic of the book name, or the title, as you can call it. What prompted you to choose that particular title? And you can enlighten us on that. Otherwise, I really found them to be very interesting. Then the two songs by our artists are really, really very good. I still I want also to commend them for that. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, Mary. Beats of Memory. Well, I wrote that in several patches, actually. As Dibussi mentioned earlier in his intervention, I published sections of the book in the past, and they were just patches of memory, if I can put it that way, from my stay in Madrid as a student. This is well over 30 years ago. So this is not a new endeavor at all. So as for beats of memory, just little patches of what I could remember from my stay there. And, I created a protagonist, who's picking up bits and pieces of what he could remember from his days. This is not an autobiography. So when I'm talking of me, actually, I should be talking of Laintain Basha, not me, because many of the things that are said there did not occur to me personally. Just the protagonist remembering bits and pieces of what happened to him. If you look at the book, it's not. It's true that it flows from the beginning to the end, but different chapters, you could pull out a chapter from there and create something else out of it, which will stand on its own. And that's one thing too with keeping a diary on like writing a novel from beginning to end, was that the writer of the diary picks up things that are happening to them in their lives from time to time and write on them, which could stand independently of the other pieces. You see, so that's where the notion of beats memory come in. Although they're linked together, just as the beats are linked together by a string that goes between them, and they form one piece, but they could also be broken up into individual pieces, and they will stand on their own. I don't know if I'm clear on that, but that's what.
Thanks very much, Martin. Very thoughtful response to an interesting question, because I also was intrigued by that, and I was reading it also, beats of memory, but also bits of memory. It also goes. And if of course you have the novel by Semen Usman, God's Bits of Wood. So I always make this connection when I'm looking at this title. So that was yes. Martin's Bits of Memory. That could also be the title. Okay, we have Professor Ash on the queue. Professor Joyce Ash, of course, is an author in her own right and also published by Spears Books. Always a pleasure listening to you, Prof. Joyce. Yes, you are there, on video, so the floor is yours.
Yes, if I may, just one comment on the title. He could have said beats, but when he also says beats of memory, I think it's also very cultural, in the patches, just because you could have said patches, but you consciously said beats. It's like Achebe says, he could say, I have a hunch, but he chooses to say, my spirit tells me. So I'm glad to see that you had that cultural context. But this is my question. I am, my base is Connecticut, and I'm actually in Texas, in Dallas, and I forgot to bring my book. And I had underlined certain expressions. What struck me in your book is your prose. When we talk about creative nonfiction, the creative is very loud. You are a master of imagery, simile. And what I want to ask you is, how is your creative process? Do these things flow, or you write and then come back and start saying? I think when you talk about this one, I remember when you're talking about how the country came to being, and you talk about the string of bullets, thinly stitched with bullets. I love that. Then there's another one where you talk about, I'm remembering from memory now, something about like a pimple in a clean face. And I'm thinking, does he write, then come back and start fitting these things in, or do they just flow when you're writing? So talk about your creative process.
What a question.
Thank you, Dr. J. I'm first of all honored that you're around with us. Thank you. And I'm a student of Fonlon, Professor Bernard Sokika Fonlon. What he taught us in class was, where he was talking about his own writing. He was telling us that each time he wrote something, he would put it away in the refrigerator or wherever for about sometimes 6 months, then come back to it, and then he will be reading it as if it was written by somebody else. And then he has a better critique of his own work as if it was standing from outside, looking into the work written by somebody else. So I've grown up with that. And, it's something I usually write and then leave aside for some time and go back to it. And then, change my diction, the metaphors or whatever I'm using there. It's rare for me to just write something and then it flows at once and I have a complete piece of prose which I approve of. I always keep it aside. And I always, also want others to give their views on what I have written. You must have heard Mr. Chia, who's a colleague of mine from Douala, say that, I gave him this work to take a look at. Tande Dibussi too, also took a look at it. I appreciate and I take very seriously outside views into what I have written. So it's not something like I write at once and then just take it to the printers. No, it takes a while. I don't know whether I'm approaching your, I'm responding to what you're saying.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
concern. Yeah.
So, yes. So what I get is that some may come naturally, but others are purposeful. You go back to it and create, and that's the craftsman in you that you're creating. You're putting something together, and we can see the results. It's beautifully written.
Thank you very much. Actually, usually I do have this moment where it just flows sometimes from beginning to end, but then I'm usually not satisfied with that. I keep it aside. And then next time I go to it, I will be looking at it as if it was written by somebody else and given to me. But the first creation is usually, just sitting down and let the consciousness, technique or whatever you call it, just flow. And then I go back to it after some time, and then I tinkle a bit with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Aku. The great Professor Aku would call it, you should allow dust to settle on whatever thing you've written, so that you have that freshness of insight. And when you were speaking, because it's a wonderful read. I mean, I must confess again and again, when I read it, I found myself in James Joyce, Stephen Dedalus' mind. There was also that sensation, that spontaneous flow. But at the same time, you also had that power of imagery, which I associate with Ayukwe Ama, Beautiful Ones, and the man, that stream of consciousness. So you combine these two quite, very well in your text, and I really, really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. And there's a question that I had, but then somebody has just asked it, in a much more eloquent manner than I could have asked. So this is a question by Jean-Claude, who just performed the Ngiri incantation. He asks, Taf Jumbam, of course, you know what that means. Did Kenjo Jumbam's writing influence your writing in any ways? What did you all eat at home to develop such a good pen? Please.
Of course, I'm always like, I wouldn't call it struggling in my brother's shadow, but my brother is always, standing there. And one thing I must have inherited from him, and I think Dr. J would agree here, is the simplicity of the style. Actually, I go very much for that. Although I'm usually people say, no, you think you're writing simple, but this is not simple at all. But I always strive for simplicity. And just as an aside, in terms of style, the person who made me very conscious of what I write and with my audience in mind was our late Cardinal Christian Toomey. When he asked me to join the team of Le Fort Camerounais, I did, and he asked me, and I wrote an editorial, and I think I've never written anything with as much intensity as I wrote that editorial. I brought it to him the next day, and I gave it to him, and I was, it's a very tall man, I was standing down, and he read it, and I was expecting him to say, hey, this is good. When he was reading it, I was watching him, his body language, and I thought I would see him nodding his head and, showing me that he appreciated it. But he kept a very enigmatic smile on his face, as he always does. After that, he turned to me and said, "Who are you writing for?" I said, "But I'm writing for the four Cameroonians." He said, "Oh, no, you are not writing. Write for the people I preach to." And I asked him, "But Eminence, who do you preach to?" He said, "When I'm preaching, I have in mind people with at least the level of A level and below. This thing you are writing for your university people. It's not for the people I preach to." And that is something I've, it was a lesson in humility, which I've never forgotten. And I continue to try to, write as simply as I possibly can. Achebe, Dr. J would agree with you here that, Chino Achebe is something like Things Fall Apart. I mean, it's so memorable in my opinion because it's so simply written. And you can read it over and over again because the language itself does not create a barrier to communication. You see what I'm saying? Language is used as a tool to carry the author's communication across. So the language carries the message instead of blocking it, because in some cases you have to put the work aside and go for a dictionary to see what this man is saying. And I strive not to do that. I don't know whether I'm succeeding, but that is the spirit I have. And Chino Achebe is an example. And of course, my encounters with Fonlon and with Christian Cardinal Toomey, he brought me to see that I was not writing for the lay person, I was writing rather for the intelligentsia. That has been something I've been working on for long.
Okay, wonderful. But what did you eat at home? At least you ate something at home that must have triggered that. What is the the special food that your mom gave you and Kenjo? At least we want to know.
I think the question should be actually asked about my dad. My dad was a traveler. He traveled a great deal in his younger days to what we usually call the coast, and worked in Tiku and Miselele, all those places, and then carried kola nuts from our village through Nkambe all the way to northern Nigeria. My dad spoke Hausa beautifully, and he was always telling us stories of his travels. And sometimes the stories were told the same way over and over, year in, year out, so that my brothers and I came to know those stories sometimes by heart. And when my dad was telling them, we could even, chime in and know what was coming on. So it was a great storyteller. And we might have, inherited something from him. You talked about the radio the other day. When you were talking about the radio, I remember that my dad, my brother gave my dad a transistor radio, which he valued really much. And the only station the dial was on Radio Kaduna. And he would listen to, and the Hausa language of Radio Kaduna. If you ever changed the dial from Radio Kaduna, my dad would be mad, So, he's no longer with us now, but, I remember that when you were talking your book on the radio, that came to mind. So.
Thanks so much.
Gilbert, let me just interject there. And I want to speak up for your mother. Yeah. Your father may have brought in the stories, but the person who may have influenced the simplicity of the style would be a mom, because mothers are the one who engage with children, a lot in our African homes. So the daily language, they're the ones who know how to break it down. Emotions, they break down emotions. Your father may get upset, or the way they talk. They don't even, they were a few words. They didn't talk a lot. And if they were storytellers, they told the stories in particular context. But it is mothers who knew how to transmit, sometimes in proverbs, and they would explain. So I believe that if you go back to actually see where imagery comes from, where imagination comes from, you may find the roots back to your mother, and not so much, maybe the storytelling idea comes from the man, but when it comes to the creative imagination, I'll give it to your mother without even talking to her.
Long live the mother, Dr. J.
Long live the mother, in defense of the mother. Thank you so much. I think it's self-evident. I mean, there's no need for a response. It's there. I mean, she said it. Okay. Is there anybody with another question?
I have a question.
Yes, Lillian.
Audience member who has a question. My
No, I
question is
think
about memory, which is part of the title of the book. But you indicated that you wrote this book, you had this manuscript, like you've kept it for 30 years. And I'm wondering, following on from the question about the process of writing, how much of the manuscript is what you had 30 years ago, and how much of it is the memory from 30 years on? Because memory is quite a fascinating thing for me. And sometimes when people write in memory about a place, especially in this immigrant trajectory that we all are, you tend to sometimes exaggerate about that place you left, your memory of it, and you sort of magnify it in so many ways. I see that a lot in the things people say about the Cameroon of the 60s and all that. So I'm just wondering, in your writing process, how much of the memory is of you 30 years later as an author capturing that Madrid and that life at that time, and how much of it stayed as a text that was written originally?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, much of it is what I wrote earlier in those days, in the 80s. I had this idea, you know, when I was a student in Madrid, and I went up to Paris, and I met, you know, some Cameroonians who were there, who were already writing. Dr. Augustin Kinney, he passed on, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago, and Dr. Henry Kishani, I think he was a professor at Cornell in Bambwe. They were already, you know, writing. They had their writings already, and this idea of writing something about Madrid came to me, you know, and I started from there, you know, jotting down points. But it was much later in the 80s that I actually sat down and wrote this piece. It has not changed much, actually. You know, it has remained basically the same. Dibussi did mention about the last chapter, which my daughter read, you know, which has remained practically the same. I extracted it from the book and had it published in Cameroon Live magazine. You know, so the rest of the book remained practically the way it was originally written. Yeah. So,
okay.
not
Thanks very much. Okay, we have what should be the last question from Moise Atebangwa. Moise, I think you can ask it live, or would you want? Yeah, you are there on video, so you can ask, please. Go ahead. Moise, you have the floor. Yes.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to, first of all, make this observation. I would like to commend Mr. Martin Jumbam, that I've known for very long now, and who is a great writer. I would like to know whether this one is just one that is giving us as a foretaste to other novels, because I believe he has a lot to give to African literature. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Moses. If Mother Muse is kind to me, you know, I will, you know, certainly come up with something. But the writing process is usually just you know, it's an intensive labor activity, and it can be very challenging. So, you know, I'm thinking of it. Something may come up. And by the way, I'd like to thank you, Moses. You're from Boya, so if you've been able to connect with us today, then it's good to have you on board. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
So short and simple. I'm thinking of something. Yeah. So.
Okay, we are looking forward to it. We can't wait. Thanks so much. Then, yes, we'll move forward now to the next item, which is the results of announcement of the winners of the quiz. That will be done by-
Gilbert, can I just
Yes.
make a brief comment on publishing? We are all saying that it took 30 years. Let us realize that the reason why Mr. Martin Jumbam is publishing now is the accessibility of publishing. If we didn't have publishers like Spears Media available that he saw and that he knew he could publish, that manuscript could still be there. Remember, A Crown of Thorns by Linus Assom was published 20 years after it was written. Linus Assom tried to publish that work with Heinemann and Fontana, and I published excerpts of the communication in landscaping post-coloniality. And for various reasons, it was accepted, not the length and all that. At the end, it was not published until Linus Assom opened his own press, Patron Publishers, before he could publish. So Anglophone Cameroon has had that problem. And in fact, what we should do is if we can find out people who wrote manuscripts at that time, look at Menget. Today we see his son writing this, doing that. The father was the first person to publish, to write in Pidgin English. He wrote a play, but no publisher. Yeah. And he died. I don't think he published that play before he died. So we have a lot of people who wrote, but the avenues of publishing were not there. That's so I'm not surprised that that manuscript is dusted after 30 years. There are many like that.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. J, I actually sent it to Heinemann's in London back in the 90s. And the people read it and told me, oh, this sounds very interesting. But we have published your brother's book. But we will see how that performs in Cameroon. The readership is not really that much there. So this is a good piece of work, but you know, we're also thinking of the market. And they were very frank with me. They said we're thinking of the market.
Proximity between the writer and the publisher is very important. The first 100 books of Heinemann are dominated by Igbos because Achebe was the editor. Not because they were bad writers, but the stories were easily accessible to him. Ngugi is the first person who broke that mold. And so you see like a writer from Saw also, the first woman who published Anglophone lady, Sheila.
Yeah.
Sheila. If you are looking at the historiography of African women writers, she's right there at the top. But because she was from Cameroon, she remained invisible. But her work would compete with Buchi and Mechetas. They wrote about the same time and came shortly after Florent Waka. But we don't hear. So that's our problem as Anglophone Cameroon writers. But the good thing is that Spears Media is here, Langa is here, Miracle is here. There are many that are here. And Spears is leading the way when it comes to nurturing the writer, showcasing it, marketing. And that is why they are going to attract more writers. And we're going to have these manuscripts come out of the drawers. So congrats to Spears.
Thanks so much. Let 1,000 flowers bloom as the late Bole Botake would say, and we are happy that Spears is really leading the way, you know, in the domain of publishing, and not only publishing, but really like getting the quality works out there. And you know, not only you publish and you also follow up the process, and you also accompany the author. Not even the best publishers, at the global level do that. So I think this. Something to commend Spears for. Thanks very much, Spears Media, for that. So we are gradually going. We've ended with the question and answer. I'm sure if there are, I know you still have questions, but you can contact, of course, the author, but also Spears Media. And we will liaise with the author and then get your questions answered. So we'll move now to another phase, and that will be the announcement of the winners of the book giveaway to be done by Lillian.
Sure. So thank you to everybody who participated. We had the winner. First place was Simolen, and Simolen, you win a copy of Beautiful Fire by Professor Joyce Ash, who's here with us today. So Beautiful Fire. Lucky you get a copy of this. Do send us your address and we'll have that sent to you. The second person, the second place winner of the fun quiz was Dibussi. Dibussi, you win a copy of My Night in Captivity, a memoir by Christian Kalinatuni with Martin Jumbam as well. So thank you for participating. We will have that mailed to you. Do remember that we have a special promo going on our website at Spears, 25% off books if you make a purchase today, especially Beats of Memory. So if you haven't got your copy, this is your chance to go on that website and get a copy.
Thanks very much, Lillian. Congrats to Simolen. Congrats to Dibussi. I was wondering whether Dibussi and even Simolen could have been eliminated from the process, but they won. I mean, because they somewhat belong to the pays organisateur.
You have a point there.
About the fact that, I mean, you played by the rules of the game and you won, so I expect your prize. Okay, we are drawing towards the close of the program, and we're going to have a few words of appreciation from the publisher, but before that, we're going to listen to the author also say a word to the participants. From my side, it's been a pleasure, moderating this session. It's a pleasure reading the book, and for me, this is a landmark, book for post-colonial studies, especially because I engage with post-colonial studies from the Iberian and Hispano Lusophone perspective. So this is a wonderful piece, and I think it's very, very, very accessible to anyone who is a lover of words, a lover of good literature, and please make sure you support Martin by buying the book and also, publicizing it, on Facebook, on any other social media platform, so that others can join the trail. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure. And now I pass the microphone to Martin, and then later we will hear from the chief publisher of Spears Books, Jude.
Well, thank you very much, Gilbert. What I can say is that I give thanks to COVID. This may sound morbid, but had COVID not caught me where I was and kept me grounded, I might not even have gone looking for this manuscript. I was grounded in my son's house in California, and we couldn't move for almost a year. And so I went into my archives. A good thing I still had them in my computer, and I pulled out this manuscript. I read through it, and it sounded interesting. As I was telling Dr. J the first time around, when it stayed for this long, you're reading it like something written by somebody else. And so I sent it to Spears Books, and Jude immediately responded. I said, "We have received your manuscript, but right now I don't even have the time to take a look at it. I will take a look when I am bogged down by schoolwork and so on." And I said, "Oh, yeah, that's a familiar song, so I will wait." But then just about a week or so thereafter, he was back. And he said, "Listen, I just picked up your manuscript now, and I'm taking a look at it, and it's really interesting." So I said, "Oh, that's cool." So from there, our communication started and intensified as he went through the book. And I really join Dr. J to thank Spears Media, Spears Books, for this great service you're doing, not only to me and to others, but to the Cameroonian literature, or to African literature. I think you also publish books by people from other areas. And let me also thank someone I call my IT teacher. There he is, Dibussi. When we were producing a Cameroon Life magazine, which I think is the greatest thing Anglophones ever produced in Cameroon in those days of Villemot. And sad enough, it is also Anglophones who turned around and killed it, but that's a story for another day. Dibussi was there with, producing wonderful articles from Boya. I didn't know who he was, but his articles caught our attention, and then we started publishing him, and he became part of the team. Then several years later, and one day I was in my office in Douala, and I got a call. No, I think he wrote, saying he was producing. He was creating blogs. At that time, even till today, I'm still scared of information technology. But the beginning, it was worse. I said, hey, man, listen, I'm sitting here very calmly. Why are you intruding into my life with this technology thing? And then he said, okay. He had created a blog for me. He and Dr. Emile Mondua, I thank for that. And said, look, I know you have very many articles, which I did, actually. So I said, okay, man, listen, if you want to put them on the blog, I'm sending them to you. So I sent a few to him, which he put up, and he said, no, I will not have time. You will have to do it yourself. And I said, oh my God, I don't know if you can teach me, which he succeeded to do, to post those articles. And if anyone can teach me to be technologically savvy, then you must be a good teacher. So I started posting those articles on my blog, which still exist, and it's been nearly almost 30 years now. I don't remember, Dibussi, you must be when you created those blogs. So I thank you for that enormously, because I'm always scared of technology. If I were to tell you stories of how I suffered when the cell phone came, I hated the cell phone. I prayed that it would disappear, but then it didn't. And, I had to, especially sending messages on the phone, it was a terror to me. Until one day I asked my brother-in-law, Eric, I said, Eric, show me how to send these messages. And he did. So that came to help me in that regard. So I thank all those who have helped me in this regard. I thank those who were there today who participated. Jesse, Jean-Claude, listen, you are telling me, or you are not sure what I want, and say, you performed beautifully. Thank you very much. When I went to Richard King's, I thought, hey, this man is always so busy. Will he have the time? And there he was with us today. Richard, thank you very much. I thank, of course, Dibussi who performed, who gave a review of the book. I thank my daughter Simolen who did the reading. Thank Joe Banafti. Joe, thank you very much for your performance, for your participation. So anyway, what else can I say? Gilbert, thank you. Spears Books, Jude and Lillian, thank you very much. So we keep the ball rolling, and I'm sure we do a lot for creative writing in our country. Thank you very much. And thank everybody who had the time to participate. I know, especially from Cameroon, it's not easy. The internet connection is usually not easy. Thank you very much. From Milan, see my priest there for the Joe Dufe, actually not from Milan, from Loreto in Italy. Aloysius Agendia, my good friend from Canada. I remember these names. He worked with me in Le Fort Camerounais. So, and I see my family too from Cameroon. So thank you all very much. God bless you all.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. Jude, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me begin by thanking our host, Lillian, our managing editor, for always making this a fun part, especially with the quiz, which Gilbert really enjoys. Thank you. I want to thank all the members of my editorial team who were able to participate today at this launch. Thank you, Professor Joyce Ash, Divine Fu, Walton Kui. Those are all members of my editorial team. They were all part of this event at some stage. And thank you for always supporting this vision that we have, that we are nursing. We are all nurturing this together. Thank you to again our moderator. Can we put our hands together for our moderator for doing such an excellent job? Thank you, Gilbert. It was really a pleasure to have you coordinate this. It's been wonderful. Before we leave, I just have one major announcement to make. You guys must have seen the book that Lillian shared with you earlier. Lillian, you want to put the Cardinals book up, please? So yes, exactly. So we have that book launch. It's coming up in August. Stay put for the date. Again, this is a memoir by the late Cardinal, which was co-authored with Martin Jumbam. And so we will be launching this book in August. Just stay put. We will be communicating that date to you. And we hope you come out in full support of not just the Cardinal's work, but also of his co-author, Martin Jumbam. So thanks again for always showing up to our events. Thank you for your love of literature. Thank you for supporting our authors. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.